Secretary Rumsfeld, the approach of ordering a series of military investigations that are limited in scope and that do not address the question of what top officials knew appears to be the Department of Defense's MO when it really doesn't want accountability. When the allegations of abuse at Abu Ghraib arose in 2004, the Pentagon took the exact same approach. First, there was the Taguba investigation, limited to the conduct of the military police at Abu Ghraib. Second was the Faye investigation. That examined the conduct of the military intelligence personnel at Abu Ghraib, but there was no inquiry into the involvement of the civilian leadership. Third was the Army Inspector General's investigation, which focused on interrogation practices in general in Iraq and Afghanistan without examining the role of top Pentagon leadership. In all, there were over a dozen investigations by the Pentagon into detainee abuse issues, but none has resulted in a full understanding of the civilian leadership's involvement in the abuses. None has resulted in a full understanding of your involvement or the involvement of the White House. Mr. Secretary, do you see the parallels here? Do you see why some would think that in the case of both Abu Ghraib and in the Tillman investigation, there were deliberate efforts to avoid accountability? And if you see that the manner in which this serial kind of narrow investigating, never answering the questions about who at the top knew what, is a problem, what do you think ought to be done so that the American people can be assured that the top leadership in this country is accountable, is willing to come forward and tell the truth, and is going to take the actions to reassure the American public that abuses won't happen again?
Congressman, I don't obviously agree with your characterization of the history of this. There was an independent panel that looked at Abu Ghraib at the senior level and issued a report. There is a problem, I don't disagree at all, with the perception that you end up in a situation like the Tillman case where you have 5, 6, or 7 separate investigations. And there are a variety of reasons as to how they got from where they were to where they are today with the most recent Army investigation and announcement. None of the answers are satisfactory. It's unfortunate. It's harmful. It causes exactly the perception that you're promoting. And it's regrettable.
What should be done about it?
I don't know. I wish I had some brilliant answers. One of the things I might just mention is that under Goldwater-Nichols, the command responsibility is separated from the organize, train, and equip responsibility. And as a result, you end up with people who are down one of those chains of accountability and responsibility, and some people who are down the opposite chain, the administrative as opposed to the command. However, in the middle at various places, there are individuals who have a hat, if you will, in both of those. And you end up frequently with a long pause as to who should do what. Who's got the responsibility? Should it go up? Should the court-martial or the investigation be done at this level or that level? Should it be done in the administrative chain or the command chain? Obviously, the problems usually happen in the command chain, so there's a tendency to be biased towards that. On the other hand, you take a man like John Abizaid, who was the combatant commander in that case. He was fighting a war. He was busy. He was traveling all over the world. And there's an attraction to moving the responsibility for such an investigation over to the administrative chain because those individuals are not engaged in the actual chain of command and wrestling with those problems. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that there's a tension there that I find confusing as to who's going to take responsibility for it from the bottom up. And you end up, possibly one of these gentlemen who've lived it can make a better analysis than I have, but I have been concerned about it and expressed concern about it within the department, and I think it in some way contributes to the problem that you're talking about.
Thank you. I see my time is up.
The gentleman's time is up, but General Abizaid, did you want to comment on that point? Sir, I think it's very important to understand that the way the warfighting system is designed is to keep the operational commander's hands free with forward-looking battlefield activities and operational decisions. The administrative chain of command, in this case, going through the Department of the Army, handles things like notification of families, awards, logistics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it would not be beneficial to try to saddle the combatant commander with all the administrative functions because it would cause his staff to become too big, too unwieldy, and would frequently cause that person to take their eye off of the immediate actions going on in the battlefield. And I would like to point out that during this time period, if it had been the only event that was occurring in the theater, it could hardly be understood that the information didn't flow freely. But the Battle of Fallujah was taking place around this time, all sorts of various military activities, both in Iraq and Afghanistan, 27 different countries in the region responding to various political military activities, et cetera, et cetera. It is absolutely essential that we keep track of what's happening in order to make sure that the right resources are applied at the right place and that lives are preserved in the way that we conduct our military operations.
Thank you, General. Mr. Shays. Oh, you've had your time.